Yeah, you'll come to work with a beard.
I will.
Oh,
wait. I just need to get sick so I can have my Barry White voice.
Yeah. There you go. Get the,
All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the HIG podcast. This is number 6.
Number six.
I am MattyP, Matt Pinnell, here with Bronson Kaufusi. As always, what's up, Bronson?
How much? Good to be here.
Yeah, I like your hat. Disneyland, right?
Oh, thanks. Yes. Dadland, it says on it, but it has the Disney.
Oh,
kinda look.
Dadland.
Yeah, Dadland.
Oh. I've never been to Dadland.
It's Disneyland, but
Are the rides fun?
yes, they're the best.
What did we do yesterday?
Oh man, we had quite the event. It is, I would call it the main event for Harris Investment Group. We hosted our 4th of July party where we had some people from our investor base, some that aren't just friends, family here at our building where we enjoyed some breakfast, each other's company, and then we watched the 4th of July parade, which is just right, it runs right underneath our building. So it was really cool to be able to watch it from our deck, and then also we saved some spots down below and people could bring their families. It was great.
It was a lot of fun. We had some popcorn. Some of us even got to be in the parade. Some of us, not me. But I saw you in the parade.
I was out there
On a
throwing
fire-
out some shirts.
On a fire truck.
Yeah, that was cool. It was cool.
That was really
Which,
cool.
fun fact, that fire truck drives through fires.
Through fires?
Through fires. It completely cannot be burned at all. Yeah, just letting people know that's real.
Wow. Well, today, of course, we are at the Harris Financial Center here in Provo, Utah, up on the 7th floor. Beautiful views, as always. I think every time that we start this, we talk about how we'd rather be fishing or hiking or doing something or going to Disney or Dadland. This episode is sponsored by some toast and 2 fried eggs and cottage cheese with a little bit of honey on top. It's breakfast.
So good.
We have a very special episode for all you guys out there. We have our very own CIO, Matt Denning, here in the studio. What's up, Matt?
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's
Going
rolling.
good.
Yeah.
Better that you're here, Matt.
Well, wow. Better that you're not seeing my face and this is just audio. How about that?
I don't know. Your voice is very nice. I mean, your Barry White voice when you're sick is pretty cool too. But regular Matt voice is pretty good.
Appreciate that.
I actually have kind of a fun story. I like to kind of share a little story about everybody that comes in. And this one involves a hike. You remember last year, I guess it was about a year ago, we were talking about hiking, right?
We did.
And I sent you a couple hikes that I had done. Very beautiful hikes, right? There was one that I sent you called Horsetail Falls. Now this hike, for anybody who, well, probably most people don't know, but this hike is about 4.5 miles long total. It has 1,653 feet of elevation gain. Now this hike, that elevation gain is done in the first 2 miles. 2.25 miles. That's a lot of elevation for 2 miles. I sent you this hike after you had said that you hadn't hiked for a little bit.
I remember.
You're looking to get back into it.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, this will be good. This will kick his butt. It'll be pretty good. So I get a couple pictures when you're at the top. Beautiful waterfall. Last year was going off. It was so cool.
It was.
And then the next Monday, came back into work, and I'm like, I got to go talk to Matt. I want to hear about his hike. So I'm like, how was it? And you're like, it was good. Had a good time. And I'm like, yeah, it's awesome, right? It's hard. And then you said, I had a goal. I set a goal before I went. Do you remember what that goal was?
I do. It was to keep up with my wife, but the goal specifically was not to stop.
Yes, not to stop.
Until we got to the top.
I don't think I told you this. I didn't have the heart to tell you this. Maybe it was a pride thing. But when I hiked it like a week before, I couldn't do that. I had to stop because it's a hard hike.
Yeah.
Right? And I like to hike. I hike quite a bit. So like kudos to you, man. You did that freaking hard hike without stopping.
Okay, Matt.
I went earlier this year too.
About.
I couldn't do it. So
You know what? The walker came in handy the rest of the week, but I was able to conquer that day. Those 2 hours, 3 hours.
well done, sir. You must either have really good stamina.
Or I just don't want my wife making fun of me, and so I carry on.
Hey, well said. I hear you. Well, we're happy to have you here. We're happy. We have a couple questions that we want to ask you. We want to get to know a little bit more about you and your past. just kind of fascinates me. And now Bronson and Matt, you guys know each other. You've known each other before the Harris Investment Group days, correct?
This is true.
We do, yeah. When we trained together on the jets.
Yes, we trained together, and Matt was pushing hard just like he did up that hike. Just like,
Did I ever huff and puff during those training sessions?
Not once. No. I don't recall.
No, we did. I lived near the facilities, the jets training facilities, and I looked from afar, thinking, boy, one day I bet I could work out like that Bronson Kaufusi kid. But what was that, 2017, 2018?
Yeah, 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2018. I left Baltimore, showed up at the Jets, and you were in the neighborhood.
I was.
Yeah.
I lived in Whippany, New Jersey. Shout out to Whippany, the next town over from Florham Park, which was the training facilities. And my wife owned a studio there, and just, got to know each other and church, and it was great.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. So, okay, when I met you, okay, how long had you been in New York for? Or in Jersey?
New Jersey, 2014. I moved out in 2001 to New York.
Okay, and that was you
May
moved
of
from
01.
BYU? You were at school at BYU.
Yeah, so I'm from Rhode Island. I'm from the East, but went to school out in Utah at BYU, and then got married in end of my junior year. And my wife and I, right after graduation in May 2001, moved out to New York to go work on Wall Street. And I lived in the New York side until 2014.
Okay.
And then moved over to the New Jersey side.
You're a full-time East Coaster.
I think
Besides
so.
a few years out here in Utah, but now you're back.
Proud of it.
We got you back.
You got me back.
Oh, man.
You said to work on Wall Street.
Yes.
The Wall Street, or is this like, Rome, Florida?
That's a good question. No, my first real job, as I like to say, was down right off of Wall Street. Our company headquarters were on 72 Wall. My building was... Boy, now you're bringing me back. I think it was 160 Water Street, so right around the corner. So we'd ping pong back and forth in between those buildings. But yeah, I was downtown. Although downtown really isn't what it's made out to be. You see the movies and the action, but downtown has really struggled for a while. In Midtown, up near Times Square, Rockefeller Plaza, that's where the action is happening, even in the investment world. Yeah. And so it was exciting when we moved up to Midtown, onto Park Avenue, 47th and Park. 277 Park Ave. Boy, bring me back to some of the addresses here.
There you go. There you go. I love it. I love it. So tell us, did you always want to be in the investment space? Did you always know, I'm going to Wall Street, even when you were back in Rhode Island? Or how did you come to that?
In the beginning, I wanted to own a strip mall, and I was going to have my baseball card shop, and my mom was going to have her quilt shop, and then my dad could have his woodworking shop, or woodworking store, I should say, and the quilt store, and I would sell baseball cards. That was my original dream. But at some point, and I'm not sure when, it did transition, though, into business and then investments. And I don't know if it's the same with many out here listening, but sometimes you look back and you say, I really had no clue what that was going to entail or what that was. I didn't know what investments was. I didn't really know what Wall Street was. And yet I wanted to do it for some reason. And I don't even have a story that transformed my life that made me make that change. It's just at some point, it's what I thought about and it's what I did end up doing.
Wow. Okay. So what was your favorite part about being on Wall Street when you were there?
So when people think about New York and it's so amazing to work in New York, what makes it amazing, it's not that it's New York per se, it's that you have a high density of like-minded people or people within your industry, I should say, not necessarily like-minded, but within your industry. And so every day there could be an investor lunch or a conference or an economic forum or something that was going on that you could potentially participate in. And I was very fortunate for the company that I worked for where we had access to these events. I did my first year at a company called Sanford Bernstein, but after that I moved to AIG, AIG's Global Investment Group. And collectively, the asset management group managed over $500 billion in assets. It was actually the third largest asset management company in the world.
Wow.
Up until the economic crisis in '08. But what it meant was, because of that size and because our hedge fund group, we had a $10 billion portfolio at peak, we were invited and could get into basically any event. And so what made New York great and what I loved about it was being able to talk to in person, be at the feet of those smart people much smarter than I was, and listen and learn and soak it all in. So that's what was so incredible for me, for New York, and what I love about it.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, because that creates a unique ecosystem where pretty much everyone wins. And everyone wins in attaining knowledge, but not everyone wins at applying knowledge. So
you're right. And it's, what do you do with the opportunity that you have in front of you? Do you take advantage of it or not? And so I tried to. Yeah.
So maybe you could dive into at AIG. What was your role? What did you oversee? Tell us your type of day-to-day type.
Yeah. So when I graduated, I had done an internship before in Boston, just outside of Boston at Putnam Investments. And the tech bubble was very much, or I should say the tech, it wasn't the bubble yet, but the technology stocks and the market, the .com era, it was really taking off. And so that was interesting to do a 6-month internship at Putnam there. But when I graduated in May 2001, the bubble was very much popping. And so it was tough to get a job. And so I worked for Sanford Bernstein doing back office work. Then in the moment, it seemed like just misery. And why did I have to go to college to do this? And in hindsight, after moving on within my career, I really valued understanding the nuts and bolts and how the back office and how it all works, how the sausage is made, I guess would be an expression to use. At AIG, I went over into their hedge fund group. And so hedge fund and the hedge fund industry was really starting to take off in the early 2000s. It was in the mid to late 90s that hedge funds started to become a thing that people spoke about. And then in 2000 to 2005, the early movers within the industry, that would be really the early mover period. And I landed a job at AIG. I think I was employee number 5 within the hedge fund group.
Wow.
As crazy as it seems, I was the head of risk management.
Hey, there you go.
right out of the gate, because we had such a small team and it was so new. And I spent 3 or 4 years primarily, really just doing risk management, overseeing our hedge fund portfolio. This was a hedge fund to fund where we invested in other hedge fund managers. And so I was tasked with obtaining information about what those hedge fund managers were doing, trying to track the risk profile and aggregate that risk across our portfolio, our fund, and make sure that we were moving in the right direction and accounting for the risks that we were, taking on as we were making those investments. And so that was how I started my career.
Wow.
Kind of my first big job.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, so you were there at AIG. Now you're in real estate. So tell us about that transition, because they're quite different, but there's a lot of crossover there. So how did that even happen?
So in the investment world, you have what's called traditional assets and alternative assets. And your traditional assets are going to be your stocks and bonds. And then you have your alternative assets, which in some sorts is everything else, but it can also be trading strategies of traditional assets. And so a traditional or a typical hedge fund strategy would be equity long short. You don't just make bets that you'll go long and make money on stocks going higher, but you also bet against stocks thinking that they'll go lower. And I bring this up because it was an incredible experience for me to be exposed to all the different types of asset classes and trading strategies of those asset classes. It wasn't just being at a mutual fund company and understanding why you go long Apple stock. So within AIG Global Investment Group, we managed about $125 billion in alternative investments. And alternative investments, if you look at the major classifications or sub-classifications, would be hedge funds, private equity, and then hard assets like real estate, commodities, timber, things like that, real assets. And so I've always been exposed in the alternative space to real estate to some degree. Now, when I was the head of risk management over our portfolio, we had a $10 billion portfolio at peak. It included real estate. Now, that real estate was more trading REITs or some arbitrage strategies which could exist, but trading securities, not the underlying physical ownership. And then when I moved on into the research division, I managed a $3 billion equity portfolio, and within that equity sleeve, we had managers that were investing in real estate. But it is within the larger organization that we had physical underlying real estate exposure, the hard asset exposure. So I've always been exposed to it. But truthfully, as I think about as I came over to Harris Investment Group and met with Jason Harris, and we were talking about working together or me working for him, I think a lot of the appeal was actually just my risk management background and also understanding how institutions run money. We had pension funds and endowments and big family offices that didn't just want a return. There was so much more to the investment experience than that. And it wasn't going on a jet and seeing a jazz game or going golfing either. It was the processes and the scalability behind the investment process that was there. And so I believe that that was a big reason why Jason saw the appeal of bringing me on board. And so how did I get into real estate? I have had a real estate knowledge, but I believe it was more of a well-rounded investment background and experience that made me be a good fit for this firm. Hopefully it still thinks that.
For sure. Funny story. I remember when I came back after a season and you were there with Jason, and I was like, what is going on here, Matt and Jason? I was like, whoa, is this like the super team getting together right here? Like, and I remember, you guys talking, telling me what was going on, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. So I love it. I love that you two, came together. And
it is funny how that happened. I also remember after a couple of weeks being on the job and going over the portfolio, and that was the days of syndication for Jason, and every investment had Jason and a partner, and I see Jason and Bronson Kaufusi and Odell Lane, and I was like, wow, how about that?
I know, that's crazy.
How about that? I taught Bronson how to bench press, and now I'm going to help him on his investment.
I like that.
Something like that. That's how I recall.
As long as we can, keep the bench press going up and keep the investments going, we're in a good place.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, that's awesome. I have a question for you because, going from Wall Street, coming over here, helping. I mean, you are the CIO, Chief Investment Officer here at Harris Investment Group.
Yes.
Tell us your role here, what you're doing, what you're looking at. I think a lot of people want to know that.
Yeah, so just like any organization, it's all about teams and finding complementary skill sets, and hopefully 1 + 1 = 3, the old cliche. At Harris Investment Group, I am the Chief Investment Officer, as you said, which is in charge of making sure the sourcing of our investments and the oversight and managing of our investments all go well, and the realization and the exits go well. So all of that falls underneath a typical Chief Investment Officer role, and then it's working with Jason and other senior members of the team, just managing the team and making sure that it's not just the investment side that's going well, but it is the back office and operations, and again, with my risk management background, that we're thinking about more than just how to make money. We're thinking about how, what's the cost and the risk of getting there, and do we have the people and processes to make it happen? So
it sounds like you have your hands in a lot of cookie jars.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not a jack of all trades, master of none. I like to say.
There's actually a second part to that.
Oh, there is?
So the way the quote goes, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
Okay. Well, I'd like to think I'm a master of a few. That's my hope.
I think a little more than a few.
think so.
Definitely a master of many.
Master of some, hoping to increase that. It's great, though. This is why you surround yourself in a team environment with A players. That's what we're looking for, right? And even those areas that we do have expertise and depth in, you don't know everything, and things change, and bringing in the fresh perspective definitely helps. So I'm excited about the team that we've built here.
Yeah, it's an incredible team. I remember that's probably what I was most impressed with, honestly. Like, I was coming from a football background, team perspective, right? Everything's about the team, championship culture. And there are teams in every sport, every level, that are not championship culture. It's very easy to tell. But I could tell when I joined, oh, wow, this is championship culture. So I think you're doing a good job, Matt. Here.
I just want to remind you, though, what I've told you many times before. It is uncomfortable when you send me a text and say, Matt, can you be ready with the pom-poms so when you come through the doors, we can cheer you on. So
get the Gatorades. Let's go.
We can't implement all of your football traditions.
But in all honesty, we are getting kind of used to it. I mean, the pom-poms are in the second drawer down, right? We just need to make sure we get the right color.
Yeah, we need the right color.
Are you feeling Jets today? You feeling Baltimore? We do Green Bay, or are we going all the way back to BYU?
It's just when he asked me what skirts in the third drawer to put on. That's when it gets uncomfortable.
Hey, it's all about the culture. What's going to help us get?
Let's talk risk management. No.
Yeah.
Speaking of risky.
Speaking of
risky. Well, final question for you. What's your favorite part of being at Harris Investment Group?
It is the team. At the end of the day, work can be demanding and hard, and so the team is what makes it worth it coming in. That's the answer. Let me give you the second, what comes in a close second.
Yes.
I love learning. I love knowing that it's impossible to know everything. It's what I loved about what I've done for so many years in the alternative investment space. It's knowing that it's impossible to know the future. Obviously, we all talk about not having a crystal ball, but it's also impossible knowing every input which is going to drive investment returns. You have ideas, you have experience, which tells you that you know what you need to look for, you know what you need to be tracking closely, but you can have 10 different variables and not know in this market environment how much variable 1 versus variable 2 is going to drive their performance. In a certain market, maybe variable 1 drives 80% of the returns, but variable 2 is only 10%, and variable 3 is 5%, and so on and so forth. But in another market environment, it's flipped. And so it's impossible to understand it all and to know how it will all play out. But that challenge, knowing that you need to be on your game every single day and be forward thinking, and not trusting your experience, even though your experience is very important, but knowing that there's more out there to understand. I love that. I remember coming home years ago and talking about milk prices in China with my wife, and what's going on in XYZ country and how that's impacting us in the United States and how it's impacting investment opportunities, and I tying it all together and trying to tie it all together and to implement something. That's what I love about this industry. That's what I love about this job. And even though at Harris Investment Group, we're primarily thinking about real estate, there is this overarching theme that we still need to be apprised of what's going on in the market. And how is that impacting inflation? And how is inflation impacting interest rates, which is impacting the loans that we're trying to obtain? And how is it impacting the fact that in 7.5 months, we need to refinance a property, and what will the debt markets be like at that point in time? Can we access the mortgage market, the CMBS market? How will the local banks be playing? How is the Fed and their impact on their regulatory oversight of banks impacting their lending liquidity and how tight they are? So It fascinates me to try to put all of this together. It's impossible to predict with, to have the crystal ball be right every time.
Yeah.
But that is what I love about investing. And at Harris Investment Group, being able to try to put those pieces together and brainstorm with the other members of the team, that drives me.
That's what makes it fun, though. And then you wake up, there's going to be new challenges and something new every single day. So, appreciate you coming on.
No problem.
Matt Denning here.
I had no idea that your very first, I guess, career goal was based around baseball cards and your parents.
Yeah.
Baseball cards.
Yeah, baseball card and my parents.
And a commercial real estate.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's interesting. That seems to be like a common thread, though. Like it's like, it's not just you down a path, but it's you incorporating others and kind of building something. That's very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
I had no clue.
Yeah,
it's
awesome.
Do you wish that you were selling baseball cards right now? This is a trick question.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I wish I didn't know you guys and I was trading baseball cards. Well, I guess the other part of that story, Matt, is that I also saw a lot of baseball card businesses go out of business in high school.
Oh, wow.
And so
you adapted.
The pitcher's mound store. And so, yeah, I quickly transitioned that. And it was late in high school, I started thinking about stocks and investing. In the early 90s, which it was an interesting time. The 80s had just had this period of hyper, there was some inflation, but interest rates and Reaganomics, and Wall Street was just really starting to take off and be in the news in the late 80s, early 90s. So,
what's interesting, Bronson and I think it was episode 4, we were talking about Harris Investment Group and how we evolve and transform as the market evolves and transforms. And we noticed that a lot of people don't do that. But it's interesting to hear that even you, when you were back in high school, you could see a trend, you could spot it and kind of evolve things and build things to be something different. I guess I know where that comes from now.
Yeah.
Like looking at it from where I'm at and then learning more about your past and, your career. That's interesting.
It's a very interesting topic too. Another day and another time, I'd love to come back on and talk about it because it's so interesting how you react to shifts in the market and shocks in the market, and how you can see some people that just fundamentally shift, have these paradigm shifts. The market is different this time versus, I like to say that the market is never the same, but it rhymes. And it's a very interesting conversation about how much you really should adapt and pivot and change when the market shifts. But I acted like a little boy, like a little baby when I was a kid. And I told myself no baseball card shop when I saw them close down.
Wow. You were willing to consider something else, even though that's what you wanted to do at that point. That was your lifelong dream.
That was my multi-year lifelong dream.
Wow.
Sure, I don't want you to overhype this, but I wanted to sell my Tony Gwynn cards. Do you know who Tony Gwynn is, man?
I'm sorry, no.
Okay, that's okay.
Don't hate me. Who's
That's
Tony?
okay.
Who's Tony
Do
Gwynn?
I, but he must be pretty good.
Oh my goodness.
Tony Gwynn?
Neither of you know who Tony Gwynn
Is
is.
he a New York Yankee?
No, he's actually a San Diego Padre.
Oh.
Which, I'm a Boston guy, Boston everything.
That's far away.
Wow.
He was a good guy. It was tough to find good people, and wow, Tony Gwynn. It was great being with you.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you coming on. If anybody wants to ask us questions, you can send an email to contact@Harris Investment Group and put HIG podcast in the subject line, and we'll get to your questions on the next podcast that we do. But man, we learned so much about Matt today. Appreciate him.
I kind of wish it wasn't ending.
I know. Everyone's going to want to hear more about Matt. That's what everyone's going to say. They're going to say, we want more Matt.
Or Tony Gwynn.
Or Tony, yeah.
One of the two.
One of the two.